All right, so those of you who have joined us, thank you very much for joining us. Today is our last seminar before spring break. Spring break is starting on Monday, so I know that some of us are already in spring break mode or thinking that way. But before we do that, please join us, or thank you for joining us, with Dr. Kelly Schmidt, who is an alum from Rowan University. She graduated with her bachelor's in biology in 2013, which is actually right before I got here. So I missed her tenure. It's right after I finished is when you started, and then right before I came back is when Kelly left. So, but after getting her bachelor's in biological sciences here at Rowan, Kelly moved on to Syracuse University and got her master's in evolutionary biology and her PhD in biology. She then moved from there to uh, moved from there to Cornell. That was it. To Cornell and did a postdoc. And in both of those, she did a lot of discipline-based education research, which means that her goal was to learn how to learn and how to teach, but specifically about biology. So today she's going to talk about her path getting to graduate school and throughout graduate school, and answer hopefully a number of the questions that we may have. So please welcome Kelly Schmidt, Dr. Kelly Schmidt, and thank you for coming back to campus, even though it's virtual.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm really excited to give this talk on a subject that when I was finishing up undergrad, I knew very little about. And hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on the process to get to and through graduate school and what postgraduate school looks like. I did learn that some of you are graduate students because Rowan just started a graduate program, I think 2 years ago. And so I'm really excited about that. And I hope you all are enjoying it. And it's possible that you already know a lot about what I'm going to talk about. But if I can answer any questions, please let me know. I am in no means an expert on graduate school. I have simply spent the last 10 years in academia navigating it. And so I'm going to talk about my experiences. So just an overview of my talk today. So I'm going to give a quick introduction, a little bit more of an introduction than I already have. Talk a little bit about my journey from undergrad to where I am currently. And then talk about some things to consider when considering graduate school and then applying to graduate school. And then what like graduate school is and what the experience can be like. And then talk about some potential career options, both post-graduate school, but also some of them can be just post-undergrad. So yeah, and if you have any questions as I'm going through, you can put them in the chat or, and then we'll ask them at the end, or answer them at the end rather. So for those of you that are undergrads, I was informed that most of you are either juniors or seniors. And so you're probably starting to think about what post life after undergrad looks like in terms of a career and what to do with your degree in biology. And when you tell people that you're a junior or senior, you probably get that question like, oh, what's next? And that's a super daunting question because you spent 4 years in school and you have this degree, and biology is this really broad subject. And so considering what you can do with it is, what your career is going to look like is daunting. And side note, that's not to say that whatever you choose immediately upon finishing your undergrad has to be your forever career. You can always change, but that's a separate statement. So anyway, one option upon finishing your undergrad is graduate school. And when I was a junior and senior in undergrad at Rowan, I knew that graduate school was an option, but with the exception of my professors, I knew no one that was in graduate school. And so the idea of what graduate school was and what it entailed and how to get to it came with a lot of questions. Questions like, how do you determine what degree is right for you? How do you find a school? When do you apply? What's the application process like? Like, what is grad school even like, specifically in the sciences? And then what are some good things? What are some challenging things? Like, why should I do it? What are some career options? And so hopefully by the end of this talk, I'll be able to answer some of these questions to the best of my ability. But I want to start by talking about my journey to where I am now. And I only do that because I think that my path is one that is not unique and one that is quite relatable. And so hopefully it will show that, like, if I can do it, you can too. So I was an undergrad at Rowan, like you all know. My first semester of college, I was a journalism major, and then I switched to biology. And I tell you that because, like, when I thought about like scientists when I was younger, I always envisioned that they were people that like loved science their whole life, and they took AP Bio in high school, and they were all about science. And that was not me. Like, I liked the outdoors and nature, but my whole life I wanted to be a journalist, specifically a print journalist. And it wasn't until, like I said, the second semester of school that I realized, like, actually, there's this other option, biology, and that seems pretty cool. And to be honest, around the time that I was an undergrad at that time, a lot of print journalism or print news sources were going bankrupt. So it kind of helped sway my decision. And so I ended up choosing to go with biology, and it's probably one of the best decisions of my life. I went to what is now known as RCGC. When I went there, it was GCC. I went there for 2 years before transferring to Rowan for my remaining 2 years of school. And I graduated in 2013, and then I took a gap year because when I finished undergrad, I like kind of knew a little bit about research in grad school, kind of hadn't decided that this is for sure what I want to do. I needed more time to like think about it and make a decision. But also, I had student loans and I wanted a year to work to pay down some of those loans. So I was a server for a year at a restaurant. I was able to pay off some of my loans so that, I could kind of help myself out in that way. So I took a gap year. A gap year isn't bad. I was very privileged enough to be able to live at home with my parents during that year, so I could really save up money um, to work on those loans. And so throughout that gap year, I was thinking about graduate school, and I knew that graduate school was an option. And like I said, I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but I had a little bit of experience with research, and I knew that I liked it. But I knew that I wasn't ready to make a commitment in terms of graduate school to a PhD because that's a long time to commit to something that I wasn't sure that I liked it. And so I started to apply to master's programs. And I ended up getting accepted to a master's program at Syracuse University, where I joined the biology department. I worked in Janice Friedman's lab, who is right here. And her lab does evolutionary biology research on a small flowering plant called Mimulus guttatus that grows all along the west coast of up from Alaska down to Mexico. And so that was our study system. My work was mainly population genetics, so studying the effects of genetic and environmental variation on growth and flowering. And my research was a combination of lab research, so there's a lot of DNA extraction, things like that. I grew my plants in growth chambers, which are really controlled environments. You can control humidity and day length and watering and things like that. And then field work. So I planted plants out into a field plot and collected data from that. And I loved what I did. I loved my research. I loved my lab. I loved the experience of graduate school. But I also knew that like this type of research was not what I wanted to do long term. And while I was a master's student, I was a TA and I TA'd for intro bio, and I really loved teaching. Like, I really wanted to teach college. But as you know, in order to teach college, you have to have a PhD. So I was in this dilemma where like I didn't want to commit to this research to get a PhD, but I really wanted to teach college. And the instructor of this intro bio course that I was TAing, who was a faculty member in the biology department, pulled me aside when I was talking with him about this and said, hey, I do research in biology education research, and you might find that interesting and you can get a PhD in that. And I was like, well, that actually sounds kind of cool. I read up on it, like investigated it further, and then applied to the PhD program at Syracuse to do that research. So a semester after finishing my master's degree, I started my PhD at Syracuse, continuing in the biology department, but in a different lab. I was in Jason Wiles' lab, and I was doing biology education research. And so my dissertation was undergraduate research experiences in biology, understanding how the role of mentors and the impacts of early exposure and types of engagement on student outcomes. So looking at things like science identity, self-efficacy, things like that in students as they pertain to different research experiences, as well as mentoring. And I really enjoyed my PhD. I loved it. And I continued to want to pursue this career in teaching at the university level. However, when I finished my PhD, it was in May of 2020. And so I was actually the first person in my department to defend my PhD virtually, which was actually really hard for me to come to terms with. For those of you that might not know, like defending your dissertation is this big culmination of your work that's usually done in this public setting with your department shows up, and afterwards you have like food and like it's this whole kind of celebration of your time doing this research. And to have to do it virtually was like really a hard pill to swallow for me, but it went well. We made the best of it and it was totally fine. That being said, the job market for assistant teaching professors and lecturers in May of 2020 was really competitive because it was a really unknown time in terms of the world. And so while I didn't really have any desire to do a postdoc, I met someone who was a professor at Cornell who had a grant that she needed a postdoc for. And she encouraged me to apply because it kind of aligned with some of my research experience thus far. And I hit it off with her really well. I applied. And so then I started my postdoc at Cornell. For those of you that might not know, a postdoc is basically this position that you get after you finish your PhD that is usually a research position. So you're brought on to work on or work under a grant that a faculty member has been granted. And so I joined Michelle Smith's lab. The grant that I worked under was called Honoring the Complexity of Genetics. It was a grant where we explored how undergraduate learning of multifactorial genetics affects student belief in genetic determinism. So basically the different ways you can teach genetics, how that impacts students' understanding or belief in the idea that genes lead to behaviors. And so the negative part of that is if students do have that idea, that can lead to detrimental impacts like student thinkings about racism and gender and sexism and things like that. And so we want to make sure that the way that we're teaching genetics doesn't lead to things like that. And I loved working in the Smith lab. I met tons of great people. Our lab went to conferences together. And when I joined the lab, I was virtual because again, it was 2020. But then eventually we were able to work together in person. And I was at Cornell for 4 years. And I was a part of the ecology and evolutionary biology department. For those of you that are birders, the ecology and evolutionary biology department houses the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, which is like the bird lab. So that was always fun to go to seminars and learn about birds. Anyway, so that led me to, so anyway, I finished up I was finishing my postdoc at Cornell. And while up until now, I always wanted to teach, suddenly the idea of teaching wasn't as exciting. And there were two main reasons for that. I loved teaching. But in order to get a teaching position, I had to be willing to move where the position was. And they're very competitive. So you really have to be able to be willing to kind of move anywhere. And I wasn't. I really didn't want to move somewhere that I didn't want to live. And, I would see, no offense to these states, but I would see positions open in, Kansas or Indiana or Idaho, and nothing against those states. It just wasn't where I wanted to live. Those are just examples. But additionally, I had spent many years in academia thus far, and while I was fortunate to get paid during those times, it wasn't a ton of money, and so I was really looking forward to the idea of making money. Um, that was more than, you know, what I was making as a graduate student and a postdoc. And so I learned about this industry called ed tech. It's basically the ed tech industry would include things like Pearson Mastering Biology. So a lot of the textbook companies have like an online platform that instructors can use in their classes. So it's kind of creating that. And then there's independent companies that also are designing platforms like that for biology classes, chemistry classes, etc. And so I started applying to positions in ed tech. And the first position I got was developing content on a per diem basis for a company called Code on Learning. And then my full-time position now is doing biology education research and what they call a content specialist, but it's actually sales for a company called Symbio. And both of these are platforms that are used in undergraduate biology classrooms. And the reason that I thought ed tech would be a good fit for me is because I wanted to still have my foot in the door with biology teaching and learning, but in this capacity, I could have a broader reach outside of a single, one or two classes. I could have a broader impact on student understanding of biology. And so that's what kind of led me down this path to do ed tech. It's also a growing industry, especially post COVID, especially with kind of as class sizes get larger, managing those with these online platforms is really beneficial. So it's a growing industry and one that I was excited to join. And so that brings me to where I am today. I'm still in these positions. And so that is kind of just my little journey for the past 10 plus years through academia. And so I just want to talk a little bit about kind of how one might get to graduate school now. So when you're considering graduate school, before you apply, before anything, the first thing that you might want to consider if graduate school seems interesting to you would be what degree. So there's two. There's your master's and there's your PhD. And they are quite varied, or they're very different from one another. So a master's degree in biology typically takes about 2 to 3 years, usually two. Every now and again, you get that third year in there, where you are doing a thesis. You, across master's and PhD, there's not a lot of coursework. So most of your energy and time is on your research. A master's kind of path through a master's degree, your kind of first semester, you're doing some background research, really getting an understanding of the field in which you're in. So for me, let's just say my evolutionary biology lab, I really dove into the literature surrounding Mimulus, the evolution of Mimulus, the population genetics of Mimulus, and started to formulate and talk with my mentor about ideas. So right, for both a master's and a PhD, you're investigating novel questions and contributing to the field in the form of primary literature. So you start to kind of formulate your idea around your thesis. You then spend the next year conducting your thesis research. That's designing your experiment, collecting your data, analyzing your data, writing it up, all the iterations that come with each step of that process, etc. And then you write it. You write up your thesis and you then defend it to your department. And the defense is usually like a public defense where you give a presentation. A PhD is a bit more of a commitment. So a PhD is typically 4 to 6 years. Instead of a thesis, you're writing a dissertation. And again, very few classes, very research forward. And the path is a bit more, a bit longer, obviously. So your first year, instead of your first semester, your first year is largely your background research as well as preliminary data collection. And that can look like running small experiments that can kind of support your goal of your dissertation. It can also mean developing your skill set, working with other people's projects in the lab to kind of help develop skills that you'll need for your project, things like that. You then write up a very in-depth proposal about your research. So you come up with your research questions, you develop this proposal, and then you have what is, I think everyone would agree, the worst part of graduate school, or the worst part of a PhD program, your qualifying exam. The qualifying exam is basically this point in your second year of PhD where you have to defend your proposal for research to your committee. Your committee is made up of your mentor, your PI, as well as a select number of faculty members that you and your PI choose that have an understanding in the field that you're doing research in. And so you go in and your committee kind of asks you a bunch of questions about your proposal. It's basically like an exam, like an oral exam, where you have to defend your reasoning behind your proposal and all of that. If you pass, you get to move on and you're a PhD candidate. If you don't, they're kind of often, this is just in the experiences that I know of, you can go down to a master's or you can leave the program. It's scary, but once you're done, it feels great. And then the real fun starts. You get to do your dissertation research. So you've now gotten the okay from your committee to go ahead and do the thing you said you were going to do. So then you spend years doing, carrying out your research and collecting all of your data. And then you spend the last year or so writing it all up. And your dissertation has multiple chapters. Unlike your thesis, which is like 1 or 2, your dissertation is multiple chapters. So like, for example, mine resulted in, I think, like 5 primary literature articles is kind of what it can boil down to. And then you defend your dissertation. And that can be scary, but the great part is usually if you make it to your defense, you're going to pass because your mentor doesn't want you to get to your defense and not pass. So it's kind of this thing you have to do, but everybody knows you're already going to pass and it's going to be great. Everybody's really excited. And the best part about it is by the time you get to your dissertation defense, you are the expert in your research. No one knows it better than you, not your mentor, not the rest of your committee members. You are the expert on your research. You've been, for the past 5 to 6 years, this has been your thing, and you are now the expert on it. So it's not as scary as it seems. So once you decide, okay, I want to go to graduate school and I want to do either a master's or a PhD, the next question is, how do I pay for this, right? You might already have student loans from undergrad. You might not want to tack on more student loans. That sounds, daunting. And oh my gosh, 5 more years of school, like that's a lot of loans. The good news is, if you're attending grad school in the sciences, you largely wouldn't be paying for it. So that's not the case everywhere, but in most cases, you're not going to pay for it. And how does that work? So funding for graduate school in the sciences and biology usually consists of 2 things. So you get tuition coverage and you get a stipend. And a lot of departments will guarantee you that tuition coverage and stipend for a set period of time that's determined by the department. So for example, Syracuse, the biology department will guarantee you funding for 5 years if you're a PhD student and 2 years if you're a master's student. In some departments, they only fund PhD students. And I'll explain that in a second, why there's this, why master's students are often left out, despite I was a master's student, so I just disagree with it. But anyway, so you are guaranteed funding usually from your department for a set period of time. And from the department, that funding usually comes in the form of a teaching assistantship. So in return for them paying for your tuition and giving you a stipend, you are a teaching assistant for the department in a class. So I was a teaching assistant for an intro bio class for a lot of my time at Syracuse. But you can also get funding in different other forms. So there's the NSF GRFP, which is a graduate student funding source that will fund new graduate students for, I think it's 3 years. You just have to apply. You can apply for it either before you get to graduate school or the first year that you're in graduate school. So it's specifically for early career graduate students. You can also get funding that your mentor slash PI has. So if they have a grant that they can fund a graduate student under from the NSF, from the NIH, through HHMI, you can be funded under that as well. So for me, I was funded both initially by a teaching assistantship, and then towards the end of my PhD, I was an HHMI active learning fellow. So instead of doing teaching, I was helping to transition the large biology courses into more active courses. So designing modules and activities for those courses to integrate into them. So that was what I did instead of the TA. So funding is often covered. So it's just one less thing you have to worry about. And your stipend varies from school to school. So the tuition is covered, but what you get as a stipend varies from school to school. And usually you can find that on the department's website when you're looking. You can find the stipend. It's not a, it's not a big salary, but you can live on it. It's going to be fine. You're not going to be homeless. It's a very, doable price or salary. The next thing, and probably the most important thing to consider when you're thinking about applying to graduate school, is you apply to the lab, not the school. That's a little deceiving because yes, you do apply to the school. However, before you even apply to the school, you have to make contact with a faculty member and have their support to be, you want to express your interest. I'm interested in your lab. I'm interested in your research. Are you recruiting graduate students? I'd love to talk more about it. And it's really important to have a good PI slash mentor. And it's hard to tell, sometimes it's hard to tell initially, but if you think about things that are important to you in your graduate career, you want to look for things like what is that mentor's mentoring style? Does that mentoring style work well for you? Are they super hands-on? Are they super hands-off? What are their expectations for graduate school? Is the research that they do interesting to you? Because you're probably going to be doing research similar to theirs. What's their lab environment slash culture like? Is it a big lab? Is it a small lab? Do they do social things together? What's their work-life balance? Are people in the lab till 11 p.m. at night, or are they kind of going home at a normal hour? And then does that mentor have funding available either from the department or other sources? And it's important that you have a good mentor that is a good fit for you, because your mentor is kind of like your gatekeeper to your success in graduate school, right? Like you can't publish without your mentor approving it. You don't really progress or defend without your mentor approving it. And yes, you have a committee that should things go wrong, there are fail safes in place if you and your mentor don't have a good relationship, that you can still succeed. But it's still the case that you want to have a good relationship with them, because they should be an advocate for you, your success, and your personal and professional development. You want somebody that's going to have your best interests at heart and help you to succeed. And you're going to be spending a lot of time with your PRI mentor as well as your lab mates. So it's important they're a good fit for you. And as you're kind of talking ahead of applying, as you're kind of talking with this PI, you can always ask to talk to their graduate students, former or current, their postdocs, former or current. You really want to get a good understanding of the PI mentor, as well as the lab culture. The next thing, when you're kind of talking to your this person that let's just say there's one person, you're interested in them, their research is interesting, they seem like they're a good fit, and you start to talk to them about why you're interested and what your experiences are. So one thing that faculty are looking for when they're recruiting for new students to be in their lab is research experience. And research experience can broadly come in kind of two forms. You can do research in a faculty member's lab, or you can be involved in a course-based undergraduate research experience, or what we call in the education space a CURE. And while research in a faculty member's lab is more competitive to get into as an undergrad, Cures are not, because they are just courses that you enroll in. And what is great about Rowan and what you can really leverage to your advantage when you're talking to faculty members about your research experience is that many courses at Rowan in the biology department are considered cures. And you can say, yes, I don't have research experience in a faculty member's lab, but I've taken many courses that have prepared me and exposed me to independent, high inquiry research experiences. I put this table here. It's from a paper from Sarah Brownell, where they kind of compare different cures, because all cures are not created equal. And so when we look at these kind of independent practices, so are you developing a research question? Are you coming up with a theoretical background? Do you come up with methods on your own? Do you do data collection and analysis? Do you come to conclusions? Are you communicating results either through presentations or papers that you're writing? And different cures differ in, which of these things that they include. So an authentic cure is most similar to a research experience in a faculty member's lab, but that's not to say that the experiences that you're having in your courses aren't translatable to research experiences. I can think of one example. At Rowan, I was in Dr. Crumrine's class. I can't remember what class it was. It was one of the biology sequences, maybe bio 4. And we did a semester-long project where I designed a research experiment looking at bird foraging habitats, or bird foraging across 3 different habitats. So in the woods, at an edge habitat, or in a field. And everybody in the class had to come up with their own research project and then carry it out. And then you carried it out over multiple weeks. And at the end of it, you took your data, you analyzed it, and you wrote basically a primary literature paper, one that, in theory, could be published in a journal. So that is a research experience, and you can talk about that when you're talking about your experiences with potential graduate school mentors. So really leverage the experiences that you have at Rowan to your advantage. If you have the ability, you can do, or if you have the opportunity to do research in a faculty member's lab, you should. If there are labs, so Rowan has a lot of interesting faculty that have interesting research going on. If there's a lab that you're interested in, you can reach out to them, see if there's open positions. I actually did undergrad research at Rowan with an adjunct faculty member I was in her class. It was a plant diversity class or botany class, can't remember. And I was interested in what we were doing. And I asked her if I could do research up in the greenhouse. I came up with a plan. She was adjunct, so she went to the department and asked if I could do it. Did it. It was just one semester. I presented it at a variety of different conferences. So yeah, just you want to seek out opportunities and make opportunities for yourself if possible. But that was really a fun experience. There I am in the greenhouse. And if you do have the opportunity to do research in a faculty member's lab, definitely seek out opportunities to present your work at local conferences and symposia. I think looks like it's at Rowan, so it must have been some Rowan-sponsored symposium. Furthermore, you are at a benefit that you go to a school where you have smaller class sizes. So you have opportunity to engage with your professors, and your professors know your name. I taught at Syracuse at a 600-person intro biology course. I had 300 students per section, and if they passed me on the street, probably wouldn't have even known who they were. There was a select few that I did, obviously, like, there's some students that I knew really well, but not all of them, of course. And you're in an advantage that you have access to your professors. You can engage with them. They know who you are. You can attend their office hours. Not that you can't when you're in a bigger school, but it's a lot more personal. And building these relationships can not only lead to meaningful letters of recommendation, but also mentorship relationships where you can kind of ask them questions about, different career options or graduate school options or things like that. And I say meaningful letters of recommendation because when you're applying to graduate school or really otherwise, when you have a good relationship with somebody that's writing you a letter of recommendation, you can get a much better letter because they can speak to you as a person a lot better than if you ask someone that they don't really know you. So it really, and those meaningful letters of recommendation can really have a big impact. So building those relationships with your professors, it's a lot easier when you're at a school like Rowan. And so I encourage you to use that to your advantage. And so yeah, there's lots of opportunities at Rowan that you can leverage when you're applying to graduate school. So just quick consideration of the timeline. The application process. If you are a senior, it is not too late. You can always just take that gap year. But let's just say you wanted to start graduate school in the fall of 2026. You are going to start thinking about graduate school this summer. So this summer, you're going to start searching for faculty that are doing research that you find interesting. And there's a variety of ways that you can find these faculty. So you can, in fact, go to, I'm really interested in Duke University. So I'm going to go look at the Duke University biology page, go to the faculty, and look at what research they're doing. That's certainly an option. Another option is primary literature, so publications. I know that in your courses, you definitely read primary literature. And so if there's an article that you read that you find really interesting, chances are you can look at those authors and see what they're up to. Sometimes they might be a postdoc or a grad student like I was, but they're always going to have a PI on it. And as most of you probably know, that last person in the author list is kind of the PI of the paper. So you can also just go to that person and be like, oh, I was really interested in this research. Let me go look at this person's page, because you'll always have their school affiliation on the paper as well. So you can look at schools, you can look at authors on papers, things like that. And once you have a list of people that you think you might be interested in, you can start reaching out to them via email and see if they are recruiting graduate students into their lab. Now, what's going to be tricky is sometimes labs are hesitant to accept master students. I disagree with this practice, but some are. And that is because to a faculty member, a PhD student is a much more valuable investment. They're going to get more out of it than they are a master's student, and it's more long-term, right? I disagree with this. And in fact, when I was applying and interviewing for master's programs, I got that question a lot, like, why a master's program over a PhD? And my response was always, well, I don't know if I want to do a PhD, so I don't want to commit to something if I'm not sure about it. And without fail, every time the person would be like, totally understand. I did the same thing. So it's interesting, a lot of people do that, but there are some people that are resistant to master's students, but I disagree with that. Anyway, you're going to reach out to them, see if they're recruiting grad students in the degree that you're looking for into their lab. In early fall, late summer, you're going to start this back and forth with these, like, let's just say they respond. They're like, yep, I am recruiting grad students. Let's set up a time to talk more. You get on a Zoom call with them, and they're going to talk about your interest. You're going to ask them about their lab, their research. They're going to ask you about your experience, and just kind of a little bit of a back and forth to determine if you're a good fit or not. In the fall, if it seems like a good fit, this person will encourage you to apply to the school. And this is what I mean by the mentor. You apply to the lab, not the school. So you are physically applying to the school, and there are points that you have to checks that you have to check off to get accepted into the school. But ultimately, your application has to be supported by a faculty member. So you apply, it goes off to the school says, okay, the GPA is okay, this is okay. Then it goes to the department. The department has a committee, and they have all the graduate student applications there. And the faculty member that you talk to, I'm just going to say Janice Friedman in my case, is going to say, oh yeah, I have availability in my lab, and I really want Kelly Schmidt. She applied, she's right there, I want her. And then they're going to have this whole process of decision making where you then, get accepted or denied. But But so yeah, you need a faculty member to kind of support your application. And a lot of times on the application, it'll say like, who have you talked to or whatever. In the winter, you'll likely kind of have more Zoom calls. If you kind of proceed through the application process, you'll likely have an on-campus visit where you'll meet with your mentor in person, meet with other people in the department, maybe have lunch with some graduate students, lunch with some postdocs, just kind of getting a feel for what the department culture is like, what the lab culture is like, if you would even like to live in this place where the school is, etc. And then in the spring, you will get notified if you are accepted. And then in the fall of 2026, you will start. So it's this very long process, to be honest. It's a little bit more work than an undergrad application, but it really does ensure that you are ending up where you want to be and where you think will be a good fit for you, and ultimately where you'll succeed. So, okay, you now know what degree you want. You understand where your funding is coming from. You understand the importance of a mentor, and you understand the timeline. And you've gotten accepted to graduate school. So, what's it like being a grad student? So, first, I wanted to talk about how it differs from undergrad, and it differs from undergrad in a lot of ways. And grad students in the call can probably relate to this a lot. You have to juggle a lot of things. So you have to juggle classes. And while there's limited number of classes, you still have to be successful in them. Teaching, if you're a TA, and research. And so you have to be responsible for being successful in all three of those things and progressing through, making sure that you're meeting all your deadlines and allocating the appropriate amount of time, etc. Don't really get long breaks off. So if you're in the ecology and evolution field, your summers are usually spent in the field. So when I did my field project with my plants, I was out in the field in the summer, keeping them alive. That's not to say you don't get breaks. Like, yes, you can go home and see your family at the holidays. You can take a week off and go on vacation. There is work-life balance, but it's not like undergrad where you get a month off around in the winter and 2.5 months in the summer and a whole week for spring break. It's more like a job kind of. It is super autonomous. So you are responsible for you and progressing forward in your degree. You have to want it to succeed. So it is very autonomous. And your success is not really measured in grades. So in undergrad, your success is this is my GPA. I got an A in this class and B in this class, and it's great. Your success really isn't measured in grades in grad school. It's more measured in your progress in your research and your professional development as a scientist. And so it's a bit different. Didn't animate this slide, my bad. And there are some challenges that come with grad school. It can be really easy to have no work-life balance. And this is something I learned the hard way. But I quickly learned, and my advice to you is the same advice I gave to myself, which is treat it like a job when possible. So of course, there are going to be times when you can't just be in the lab 8:30 to 6 or whatever it is. There's going to be times like I can think of times when I was germinating seeds for my plants. I needed to go in all the time to like spritz them because they needed a lot of water. So there was no work-life balance at that time. But the rest of the time, I went in at 8:30. I left around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And outside of that, I wasn't really doing a lot of work stuff. I was trying to enjoy my life and have work-life balance. And that comes with kind of setting boundaries, right? Not going to check my email at 11 o'clock at night. Not gonna, respond to a student question at 5 in the morning, things like that. So kind of setting boundaries and treating it when possible like a job. It takes time, which is a big commitment, and it's a long time to kind of not get well paid. So I'm saying this because for me, it was sometimes difficult to watch people that I graduated college with go off into careers immediately after grad school and buy houses and buy cars and have this progression in life differently from what mine was. And you have to realize that everybody's on their own path and yours is just a little bit different. And you are working towards something else. And so that's why I say it's a big commitment. You have to really want to do what you're doing and be determined to do it. And again, you know, it's just you have to want it. The biggest thing, the biggest challenge is overcoming imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is this idea that like you don't belong here. And you might think that you're the only person that thinks that way, but guaranteed 99% of the people in the room also think that way. I can't think of a single grad student that I, you know, have worked with or been friends with that didn't have imposter syndrome, that didn't feel like I'm not good enough to be here. You know, everybody else is better than me. And that's not true. You know, anybody can do grad school. You just have to want to do it. You don't have to be this genius or this brilliant person to pursue a graduate degree. You just have to want it and be determined to do it. And you belong there. Like you take up space, um, interact in the conversations. You know, imposter syndrome is difficult to overcome, but it's something that everybody deals with. And you just have to work to believe in yourself that you belong there. The benefits are you're going to learn a ton and you're going to develop in so many new skills and grow so much as a person. In my time in graduate school and my postdoc, I learned more than I ever have. I have come out with a new skill set. I have built a confidence that I didn't have. It's really interesting to think back on like myself as a master's student who would sit in on meetings but not really engage in those meetings. I was just kind of a listener. And then to think through as I progressed through my career, how much more of a participant I became in conversations because I felt more confident in myself. And I was kind of working through that imposter syndrome where I said, you know, I do belong. You get to interact with people from all over the world, and these people are in all different points of their careers. You get to go to conferences. Here I am at the Evolution Conference with Darwin himself. And you get to have a lot of fun with friends that you make. You'll become a part of a community, both in your research community, but also in your like graduate school cohort. It's really nice when you have your cohort because you're all going through the same thing and you can really support each other through all of those challenges and like the good times and the bad times that come with graduate school. And those are, you know, those shared experiences are things that will make friendships last forever. You know, I might not be best friends with the people that I went to graduate school with, but I will always be friends with them and I will always be in contact with them because you know, they are great. We spend a lot of time together. Being in a lab is not just work, right? Like this is at Cornell. We had a door decorating contest for Halloween. Our door is Hocus Pocus themed, if you can't tell. You get to dress up. And so not all days at work are work, right? We spent a whole work day putting up this door. And so there was not one bit of work that was done that day. It was a fun work day. It was like a Friday. We all had a lot of fun. And it's not, you know, you have lab meetings where you like do work, but somebody brings snacks and you get to like like have conversations with each other. It's very community building. And it is also rewarding. You can see the outcomes of your hard work. I would say graduate school is probably, and my postdoc are like the most rewarding things I've done in my life because I know that I did something hard and I was successful at it. And I'm proud of myself for sticking it out and doing it. And you can see kind of the tangible work that you've done in the you know, publications that you put out and things like that. And so it is really a rewarding experience because nothing comes easy. It's either there's hard parts, there's good parts. It's very much a roller coaster. You'll have times where things feel easy, times when things feel really hard, but you'll make it through and you'll be really happy and proud of yourself at the end of it. So great, you finished graduate school, right? what now? So there are academic careers and non-academic careers. Academic careers are things like with a PhD, you can do tenure track professor. That usually requires you do a postdoc first. So like the postdoc that I did at Cornell, tenure track professors usually, professor positions usually require a postdoctoral fellowship beforehand. You could be a lecturer, or assistant teaching professor, where your responsibilities are only teaching. Be a research scientist. You can work for the university's Center for Teaching and Learning. I've included some links here where you can kind of find jobs like this. So this link, I love this if you're into ecology and evolution. This is this Google Sheets doc that is, there'll be a new one for next year that people kind of populate. It's super helpful and it's like this living document. I want to say somebody from Cornell runs it, but I actually forget. But anyway, it's super great. You can also look at higher ed jobs and then society job boards. So if you're interested in genetics, go to the Genetics Society of America. They have a job board. If you're interested in evolutionary biology, go to the Evolution Society job board, things like that. Then there are non-academic jobs, which there are a ton of. So you can go into pharmacy, and this is the non-academic jobs in particular, are translatable to finishing up undergrad. So these are not jobs that you need a graduate degree for, but you can get with a graduate degree. So even if you're not interested in going to grad school, these can be helpful for you. So there's lots of industries to go into: pharmaceutical industry, medicine. You can go to research organizations like HHMI. You can go to do government jobs. So working for, I mean, well, maybe not now's the best time to look for government jobs, but in a normal environment, government jobs, NSF, USDA, National Park Service, NIH, all of those are places you can look for jobs. Job titles for a biology degree, things like a project manager, a researcher, a data scientist. You can develop content. You can be an editor at a scientific journal, medical writer, researcher, a science writer, all different kinds of job opportunities for those with or without graduate degrees. And again, here are some jobs. So this is just some examples of job boards. So again, jobs like this can be posted on society websites. So you can look at job boards through, again, this is ESA, so Ecological Society of America, the Genetic Society of America job board. All of these societies have, there's like a Human Genetics Society, so you can look on all of these and find job boards. This link is to the HHMI website that posts a bunch of jobs. This is a USA jobs, so this is for government jobs, specifically in STEM. And then, of course, you have your LinkedIn and your Indeed positions as well. So yeah, lots of opportunities. So that's a ton of information. And I hope that was helpful to at least some of you. And as you kind of start to think about life after undergrad. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Hi, Kelly. This is Dr. Krufka. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Eaton had to step out, so I'm on the call here, sort of navigating questions here from this end.
Awesome.
So if anybody that is online would like to ask a question, please just unmute yourself. And if you're in the room, obviously you can go ahead and raise your hand. I think there were some that went into the chat. So are there any questions online? All right, so I'm gonna. Oh,
there were some questions that were sent to me by mistake, so I could read that one.
oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, what is the ideal candidate or type of person who should get a PhD? As many people advise to not go into a PhD blindly.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that the most, I think if you're going to commit to a PhD immediately after undergrad, it would be best to have some independent research experience in a lab setting because it is a big commitment. I don't want to make a broad statement or deter you from going straight to a PhD, but I will say that people in my experience, my friends that had the easiest time in a PhD were people that had done master's degrees first, because it's just the master's degree can be this like learning experience where you really have a lot of support and can gain a really good understanding of research and grad school. And then in your PhD, when you start, you can really jump in feet first, and be really successful. That is not to say that I don't know people that started a PhD right off the bat and were very successful. I do think that those people tended to have some level of research experience, independent research experience in like a faculty member's lab, or let's say you did like an REU, which is a research, it's a NSF program where you can do like research in the summer with a lab. So those types of things are really helpful. But ultimately, a PhD can be done if you are determined, if you kind of know that you want to, know this is what I want to do. I love research. I want to do a PhD. This is why I want to do it. And you kind of just have to be really determined to succeed. I don't know if that answers the question well. It's a difficult one because everybody's different, right? Every person is different. Every experience is different. And so, yeah, it's hard to answer.
So is there anybody else that had ones already in the chat? I see Dr. Eaton's on his phone, and Dr. Thomas, do you have some more?
I
Yeah,
did have.
I have one. Oh,
Go for it. No, go ahead.
thanks. First of all, Kelly, thank you so much for sharing your path with us and this absolute treasure trove of advice. One question that came in was, what are some skill sets that an undergraduate student should start developing during college to attract themselves to, or to be attractive to some suitable grad school opportunities?
Yeah, I think that when applying or when conversing with a faculty member to join or to show interest in joining their lab, I would say that, well, first, reading primary literature is always super helpful. Not only because you can read up on interesting topics that you are interested in learning about, but also reading primary literature also gives you more exposure to science and how it's done. Now, primary literature doesn't really talk about the failures that come with the scientific process, so that's one thing that's left out. But you can really learn about like how research is done. What are some techniques that people in your field are doing? What are some of the background information that the people in your field have put forth? What do results look like? What did like next steps look like? So kind of, I think reading primary literature can help you gain a skill set that can really benefit you in grad school, and when you're conversing with a faculty member to be in their lab, you'll have the ability to really discuss research at a higher level than somebody that might not have had, that exposure to primary literature. That's also to say you're going to be reading a lot of primary literature in graduate school, and so might as well kind of jump on it if you're interested. I also think that thinking about the research that you want to do is helpful, because that's probably going to be a question that you're going to get, is like, what do you want to do? And you don't have to have your project planned out when you're, your first meeting with this person, but kind of, oh, I'm really interested in field work. I'm really interested in, this type of work. I read your papers about this, and I find that aspect of your research really interesting. I'd love to learn more about that, and things like that. So I think just being able to talk with a faculty member about research and science at a higher level can be really beneficial when having those conversations. In terms of like, nobody expects you to come into grad school and have all of the skills necessary to like do DNA extractions and PCR. Like those are things that you will learn in grad school and can learn. That's the point, right? Is developing that skill set in grad school. But having some level of research experience, either through faculty research at a faculty members lab, or those cures that I talked about. So the things that you're doing in your courses, you know, even down to the most minute things, like you're writing papers, you're coming up with methods, you're formulating questions, presenting your research, things like that. Those are all skills that can only help you when you're interviewing for positions in a person's lab.
Is it necessary to be an A student to get into graduate school?
Nope. I got a D in organic chemistry 2. I got a C in organic chemistry 1. I wasn't very good at general chemistry. I can't remember my bio scores. They were higher because I liked bio. So probably A's, maybe a B here or there. You don't need to have a 4.0. Now, that also depends on where you're going to apply. Highly competitive programs at very top tier schools might be different, but it is not necessary to be a 4.0 student. You just have to want to do it, and you have to present yourself in a way that shows that you can be successful at it. And frankly, when it comes to going to top tier schools, in graduate school, doesn't really matter as much. It's about the lab that you're in, right? So you can be in somebody that's really respected in their field's lab, not at Harvard University, right? You can be, everybody, it's more about the research that you're doing, and less about like, I go to graduate school at, Yale. So you can be successful without being a 4.0. At least I was. And I don't think a lot of my friends were 4.0s either.
I've heard that I also went through ecology and evolution. So our process was similar in that you find the mentor first, and then you apply to graduate school, and they sort of shuffle you in or shepherd you in, I guess. But I've heard that the cell genetics kind of side of things is different. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a tiny bit different. So you do still have to contact faculty, but oftentimes in the cell molecular world, you do rotations. So you have a number of faculty that you're interested in. Let's say it's 3 or 4. And so you still need like the support of faculty members, but it's not just like one. You will then spend the first year, this is for PhD students, I think it's different. For PhD, you'll spend like the first year rotating through labs. You'll spend like a month or 2 in each lab. And then at the end of that rotation, you pick which lab you want to be in. So there is a bit more, it's a little bit more of a different process. Thank you for reminding me about that. But you still do need to like reach out to faculty to show interest in their research, and then you'll get paired, they'll get put into your rotation, and you'll kind of make your rotation up out of people that you've spoken to and are interested in their research. For example, like if you're going into a biology department and you're interested in neurobiology, you would reach out to like, the neurobiologists that you're interested in and rotate through them. And that's just a way that you can kind of develop different skill sets and help you to really have a decision about what lab you want to work in at the end of it.
Kelly, this is Dr. Krupka here in the room. Just to follow up a little bit on that sort of slightly different process. Often in some of those programs, the faculty don't expect you to reach out in advance. You can, but certainly in your personal statement, your research interest statements, you would be listing the faculty that you are interested in potentially working for. So you would be, if you wanted your neurobiology example, you would be listing not just one, but multiple neurobiologists that you might want to work with in that personal statement. So you still have to do that hard work of figuring out who is who on that campus, who does what in that program, who might be taking on students. You want to know, was this person typically funded? So you're doing the same sort of like legwork beforehand, but it'll definitely be part of your research interests, personal statement. And you may be reaching out to them to find out who is taking on students, because you don't want to list 3 people that you want to work with who aren't taking any students. So it's a little bit different, but you still want to know who you want to work for. And so if you're going to like a cell molecular program, you want to be applying to a program where you are interested in multiple people. In an ecology program or evolutionary biology program, it seems like you identify that one person because they will definitely take you on. With the rotation system, you often want to make sure there's multiple people that you'd be happy with working with. Does
Thanks for
anybody else on the
clarifying that.
call have a question about that difference? Yeah, I don't see anybody else in the room with any questions either. So, Greg, do you want to come back on?
I can do that for him.
Great.
Kelly, thank you so much. This was excellent and really, really helpful to our students. And also just so fun to hear from an alum who can talk about Rowan so personally. We really appreciate you speaking with us today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Thanks everybody for coming and listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly.